guys, Ron here, and today we have a very special video in which I and a fellow PokeTuber debate over which of the following bunch of Pokemon are better. And of course, since Liam and I have such different tastes in Pokemon and Liam likes to argue, I thought it was perfect to bring him on for this debate. Sup, Liam?
You're not wrong, Ron. I do love to argue. If you don't know me, my name is Ace Trainer Liam. Over on my channel, I run a series called Form Fight, where we compare Pokemon with different forms or branched evolutions or counterpart Pokemon, much like what we're going to be looking at today.
Now, the Pokemon we are debating over are counterpart Pokemon, but not the usual ones.
Yeah, we're not talking about in-game regional counterparts like Arcanine or Ninetales or Ludicolo or Shiftry, who are version exclusives, but rather Pokemon from different generations with similar concepts, base stat totals, and origins.
Exactly. Examples would be Gyarados versus Milotic or Muck versus Garbodor. Most Pokemon here are actually made to be regional counterparts to Pokemon that came before them. Less educated fans will call them rip-offs.
So because of this hostility about which are better, the originals or the similar Pokemon that came after them, the whole purpose of this video is to present all the possible defenses for each Pokemon, and we'll let you decide which Pokemon won in the comments section.
And one last rule, we're only talking about Pokemon who have one counterpart in a separate region, not Pokemon like Pidgey or Rattata or Pikachu who have 6 other clones in other generations. Man, a lot of air quotes today.
And finally, we're simply determining which Pokemon each of us is defending based on which one we like better. If we somehow unanimously like one Pokemon over the other, we'll simply say why and move on, instead of one of us having to defend a Pokemon which we like less than the other.
It's better that way, because then we know which one is a unanimous decision. Now let's begin with Machamp versus Conkeldurr. Let's start with our resident strongmen, the Machamp line versus the Conkeldurr line. Both lines are 3-stage fighting types from their respective regions and reach their final evolution through trading. They're effectively the Unova versions of the Machamp line and therefore have the same base stat total.
Unlike others we'll be looking at today, where we'll focus purely on their final evolutions, for these Pokemon we're going to be looking at their full evolutionary lines.
This is mostly because I do like Conkeldurr more than Machamp, but prefer Machamp's family over Timburr and Girder. The entire family has really cool personalities, and I'm not gonna lie, they simply look more attractive. Timburr's head vein just ruins any potential cuteness it has.
Timburr's head veins never really bothered me though. I still find it to be quite a cute Pokemon, however when it comes to the Machamp line, their physique looks far too close to that of a human, and it makes me a little uncomfortable, almost like I've captured a person.
But at least the Machamp line has a very non-human color scheme, which complements their lizardy look, an appropriate looking head crest, which also kinda looks like the hairstyle of a stereotypical muscular guy, the one that they would sport, unlike the Conkeldurr line.
I mean, looks aside, I definitely prefer battling with the Conkeldurr line, since they all have better physical stats than the Machamp line, which of course is great for a fighting type family, as well as them getting access to the Iron Fist ability, which means that their punching moves pack even more punch.
Now, while the Conkeldurr line has better stats, I gotta say that a no-guard Machamp with dynamic punch is incredibly satisfying. And to top it all off, the line has a cool progression from weak to strong.
Although the Conkeldurr line has that too, using its Carnival Strongman and Construction Worker inspiration, which combines 2 awesome origins that are both inspired by strong New York icons, to progress from possessing lightweight timber to steel and ultimately concrete.
Poliwag versus Tympole. I honestly don't understand why Tympole isn't more popular than it is. It's incredibly cute, with a very unique tadpole design. Those headphones are stylish as hell, and those eyebrows actually resemble musical notes. I love the whole concept of the family, but ultimately Tympole is the only one that I think beats Poliwag in the concept department.
I just don't like Tympole. None of it appeals to me. I find its face really creepy. The headphones do nothing for me, whereas Poliwag's this adorable blue bouncy tadpole with huge puppy dog eyes. It's full of character. I feel like it emotes just so much better than Tympole.
But that's the thing, Liam, you numpty. I think Tympole can emote better, and I've only seen Poliwag with that scared expression. But I got nothing else. I think they're 2 completely different Pokemon. Dugtrio versus Excadrill. Now, while Dugtrio and Excadrill aren't counterparts stat-wise, they're both completely different takes on moles. I do love the whack-a-mole concept a lot, and I think Diglett is cute. I simply think Dugtrio is a lazy evolution, while Excadrill is one of the coolest looking Pokemon in Unova. I love the drill aspect so much that I created an entire film in college based on moles drilling into the ground.
For me, I've just never really found Excadrill very interesting. Maybe I played Unova at the wrong time, or didn't watch enough of the black and white anime, but I've just never connected with it. Whereas I love Dugtrio for being such a simplistic design that works so well, as well as being an incredibly fast Pokemon, which you wouldn't expect from it on first glance.
Alakazam versus Reuniclus. Gothitelle could have also been in the fray, but Liam and I simply both dislike Gothitelle. But Alakazam and Reuniclus are the shinks. But after some deep thought, I think I do have a soft spot for the original Psychic family. While they have the same base stat total prior to Generation 6, Alakazam is the clear choice in battle with an extreme speed stat. And then, once it received a Mega Evolution, I don't think anybody even remembered Reuniclus existed.
How can anyone forget Reuniclus? It's one of the coolest designs we ever got from Unova. It's a cytoplasm-coated wonder that makes being encased in a membrane somehow weirdly cute. On top of that, it's a lot less fragile than Alakazam and even gets access to the Regenerator ability so it can get some health back if it's in a pinch.
Okay, I gotta admit that I do love how we have a Pokemon based on mitosis, and Reuniclus nailed that concept perfectly. But on the other side, I love how Alakazam's line is an amalgamation of various animals that are associated with magic and the occult. So its animal inspiration is way harder to pin down, making it way more mysterious and intimidating.
Tell that to Uri Geller.
I will tell him, and in Hebrew. While Alakazam's concept is based on the famous Israeli psychic, its family's designs are incredibly original. Beedrill versus Vespiquen.
Now when it comes to Beedrill and Vespiquen, I think Ron and I both agree that Vespiquen is the much cooler of our two resident bees. However, it's hard to ignore the power behind Beedrill's infamous Mega Evolution, whose attack stat is almost double that of Vespiquen.
But even though Mega Beedrill may win in battle, we both agree that Vespiquen is just a more interesting Pokemon, with a very well thought out design and evolutionary concept, and not to mention, its signature moves help it stand out and complement its origin. I love Beedrill, but Vespiquen is simply more creative. Gyarados versus Milotic.
It's difficult to say which is better battle-wise when we compare Gyarados and Milotic, since they both have very different battle styles, with Gyarados being more of a physical, offensive threat, and Milotic often being used as a bulky supporter.
The only reason they're going up against each other is the fact that they're powerful water serpents that evolve from pathetic fish. I honestly simply prefer Milotic because it's, in my opinion, the most beautiful Pokemon in existence. Gyarados is cool, but sometimes you want to look at something pretty.
I, for one, much prefer the terrifying, intimidating beast that is Gyarados. One of my favourite things about it is it's not just based on a mythological creature, but in fact on a kite that is then based on a mythological creature, which is a super cool way to justify its flying typing.
But then it somehow loses its flying typing when it becomes more kite-like?
I mean, when you've got that much rage inside you, sometimes it pays to find yourself grounded now and then.
Arbok versus Seviper. Now, while Arbok and Seviper aren't technically counterparts, they're both snakes with different fan bases. Arbok is a nice simple snake, but I just love Seviper's concept and design to death.
But why? Arbok is the bigger and more intimidating of the two, and even gets access to the Intimidate ability.
But Seviper looks like an adversary. It has patches and scars. It's almost like it's the antagonist to a movie in which Zangoose is this anti-hero protagonist. It's just far more interesting, and pops out against all the tropical-looking Pokemon in Hoenn. Plus, it has a knife at the end of its tail. What's Arbok gonna do against that?
You see, this is part of the problem that I have with Seviper. I feel like it only exists to be a counter to Zangoose. Like, if there were no Zangoose, Seviper wouldn't even need to be a concept, whereas Arbok stands on its own. And as for the knife, Arbok doesn't need it, because like a proper snake, it can handle its enemies with just its fangs.
There are tons of real-world animals whose existence relies on another animal, so I see nothing wrong with having a Pokemon who shares the lore with another Pokemon. Golbat versus Swoobat. Okay, let's get this straight. We think Crobat is infinitely badass, so the debate is between Golbat and Swoobat, since I'm not a huge fan of Golbat. Swoobat is a Psychic type. Psychic is cool, it's fast, and it has a unique concept, unlike Golbat, which is just a vampire bat with a terrible Gen 1 sprite.
Yeah, the Gen 1 sprite wasn't great, but everything else about Golbat is. It's the tried and tested irritating cave bat with the added bonus of being able to utilize an array of poisoning moves. I love its design because it looks like something from a nightmare. That mouth never seems to end.
Tentacruel versus Jellicent. Honestly, these two are far from counterparts. They're both jellyfish, but while I think I just subconsciously associated Jellicent with bulk and power, as it turns out, Tentacruel is extremely underrated. In the end, it's more about the looks, and they both look completely different.
Yeah, there isn't much between them, although I do find Jellicent kind of stupid looking, so I guess I just find Tentacruel cooler design-wise.
So what you're saying is, Tentacruel is Tentacool.
Oh, hell yeah!
But Liam, that makes no sense. It's a Tentacruel, not a Tentacool. You should know that.
Shut up.
Golduck versus SWANA.
This one isn't a hard choice since I really can't stand SWANA. I don't see the point of it in a world where so many other water flying types exist, like Gyarados, Pelipper, or Mantine. Plus its bra creeps me out.
I mean, they could have at least made it look incredibly beautiful so it stands out more, but in the end it's all around underwhelming, so Golduck win. Chansey versus Audino. Honestly, these are completely different Pokemon stat-wise and battle-wise. I guess the only two reasons we brought them up is because they're both nurse Pokemon and give an immense amount of experience.
But Chansey's only really found in the Safari Zone in its origin game, so Audino is more accessible. But then, I'm not sure the nurse thing is a big enough similarity either. After all, in Kalos, Wigglytuff was Nurse Joy's assistant.
I guess I simply like Audino's design more, just slightly.
Maybe I'm biased towards Chansey since I grew up with the Gen 1 anime.
I did too, and I barely watched the Univa anime, so what's going on?
Audino?
Golem versus Gigalith.
Gigalith is literally the Golem of Unova. It's a pure rock type, part of a 3-stage evolution line that reaches its final stage through trade-in, and they even have very similar stats, although Gigaliths are slightly better than Golems. Plus it's amazing to look at, and that's shiny as well.
So while Golem is special in my heart, Gigalith seems to be the objectively better Pokemon. It has a more consistent design progression as it evolves from Roggenrola to Gigalith, and it looks much sharper, literally. Muck versus Garbodor.
Now stat-wise, Muck is technically the better of the two, but I for one much prefer Garbodor, since I think there's way more consideration put into its design than people give it credit for. Not only that, but in a weird way, it's gotta be the cutest trash heap I think I've ever seen.
I honestly agree with literally everything you're saying. I even think Muck has the worst design since it's simply just a bigger Grimer, and Grimer doesn't have an amazing design to begin with. But something about Muck is more appealing to me. I think you get this one, Liam. Rapidash versus Zebstrika. While Mudsdale is also another fellow equine,
That means horse.
I believe Zebstrika, like the other Unova Pokemon on this list, was meant to be a counterpart to its Kanto relative, but while Rapidash is a unicorn on fire, which is one of the coolest sounding things I can ever say, somehow Liam and I are way bigger fans of Zebstrika.
I mean, to me, Zebstrika oozes coolness. It looks like something that Odin would ride. I also think its abilities are in all ways better than those of Rapidash, and even though, like you said, Ron, a flaming unicorn sounds cool, Rapidash somehow just looks kind of plain.
I guess it does. Zebstrika is also slightly better at battle, so the only thing holding it back is the lack of physical electric-type moves. It's very unfortunate. Tauros versus Bouffalante.
Bouffalante is certainly the bulkier of these two Pokemon, and it does hit slightly harder, although Tauros has a huge speed advantage in this one.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Originally I wanted to back up Bouffalante since I think it's more interesting looking, but recently I've gained some more appreciation for the original bovine Pokemon. Those whip-like tails that rile up Tauros are actually very clever.
Plus, Tauros can have the Anger Point ability, which I think works so well on a bull Pokemon, since being damaged by a critical hit sends Tauros' attack stat through the roof, turning it into a literal raging bull.
So Tauros wins, I guess. Magneton versus Clang. Okay, I need a little drink break, so you take it from here.
Well, I mean, there isn't much to say on this one. I think we both agree Magneton's the better of the two. It's quicker and has much better special attack. It overall just looks way better, even if it's just 3 Magnemite combined. I've always just found Clang, much like the rest of its line, to be a pretty boring Pokemon.
Yeah, you said it. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan versus Sock and Throw.
This is a no-brainer, since Sock and Throw are two of my least favourite Pokemon designs. I can't stand the idea that they hatch from eggs in full martial arts gear.
I mean, technically Hitmonchan does as well, but I definitely am a bigger fan of the Hitmons. I just wish Game Freak went with their original idea for Sock and Throw and had them look more like Onis. The only reason they didn't is because the Kami trio already look very Oni-like. Hypno versus Moo Sharna. These Pokemon are definitely counterparts, what with the similar base stat totals and identical inspiration. The Baku, a tapir-like yokai who eats your dreams, has 2 pretty well-translated Pokemon counterparts. I just think Moo Sharna is more interesting. I love how its Dream Mist allows you to see dreams, and its design is inspired by scent diffusers, which makes sense, so while it's slower than Hypno, it's definitely the obvious choice in battle between them.
Maybe Hypno's a Pokemon I've used more in-game, but I've always been a fan of its design. Moo Sharna, even with all of its lore, has always looked kind of boring to me, whereas Hypno is full of character, especially with its signature pendulum. Although granted, we know to an extent they were planning Munna and Moo Sharna back in Generation 1, so maybe they just needed time to perfect it, whereas Hypno was already great from the start.
I mean, yeah, Hypno is more iconic. I guess I just like the creative liberties Game Freak took with the shared origins. Moo Sharna is way more adorable, while Hypno is kinda creepy. Electrode versus Amoonguss. I think this one's gonna be short too because they're very different Pokemon, but while I think Electrode works better as a mimic, Fungus and Amoonguss are more creative and make sense considering some species of fungi have similar color schemes, and they could even evolve to look like Pokeballs, but with all the Pokeballs that are left in the wild.
That's fair, but Electrode's always been a Pokemon that makes me laugh. Like, it's so simple and stupid, yet so full of character, exploding all the time. It does kind of confuse me how people sometimes mistake them for Pokeballs when they're almost 4 feet tall. Overall though, I just prefer using it in battle because it's such a fast Pokemon and people don't expect you to bring an Electrode to battle, whereas with Amoonguss, it's pretty common as a disruptive Pokemon.
Gengar versus Chandelure. If we were only debating stats, Chandelure would be a slower yet bulkier, harder hitting Gengar, but now that Gengar has a super cool looking Mega, I think Gengar takes the battling cake. So now that stats are out of the question, I think it all comes up to concept, and while Chandelure is charming, whimsical, and imaginative, I just think you can never go wrong with Gengar. It's super fun and popular for a reason.
Gengar may be popular, but when it comes to Chandelure, I always rave about how it's an inanimate object Pokemon done right. In that it looks like a chandelier, but not too much to the way you would say it was just a chandelier. It still very much looks like a creature to me, and that works so well. It's a beautiful Pokemon, and I always have fun battling with it. Don't get me wrong though, Gengar's cool too.
Yeah, though they are Kanto Unova counterparts, I guess they're both successful takes on various ghostly influences. Ursaring versus Beartic. While I can sit here all day telling you about all the cool origins and design traits Ursaring has, I just think Beartic is, dare I say it, cooler looking. They're basically the same Pokemon stat-wise, so it all comes to the fact that I think Ursaring is as interesting as a bear, while Beartic is as interesting as a polar bear with an icicle beard. That wins in my book.
See, for me, the icicle beard makes Beartic a little too comedic for me, and that takes away from the scare factor that a bear Pokemon should have. Ursaring, with its no-nonsense expression, makes the hair on my neck stand on end, so I'm giving this bear the thumbs up before it mauls me.
Stantler versus Sawsbuck. You know, I don't know how there's a contest here. I think Sawsbuck is one of the most underrated Pokemon out there, and I simply don't understand why it's not more popular. It has the most amazing gimmick, which gives it such a natural looking design, and I'm surprised that it took Game Freak 5 generations to create this handsome creature. I'm even more surprised that it took them 2 tries to design a deer Pokemon I absolutely love, design-wise at least.
If we're talking about underrated designs, that's where my good buddy Stantler comes in. Most people in the West can't even say Shishiodoshi, let alone know what one is. The whole design of Stantler's antlers gives reason to its intimidatability because it's supposed to create unease. I can appreciate the effort that went into Sawsbuck's design, but I feel like it's one of those Pokemon nobody would talk about if it wasn't for that gimmick. Like if you took the gimmick away, you'd just be left with Stantler.
But you'll have a handsome Stantler. Lucario versus Zoroark. And finally, we have 2 aloof Pokemon that Game Freak decided to promote prior to the debut of their generations, but ultimately, the Pokemon that wins by a landslide is Lucario.
Oh, easily. While nobody's denying that Zoroark is a really well put together Pokemon and really does look boss, and even has a unique ability, we both just genuinely prefer Lucario. Personally, as a fan of ancient Egypt, the ties with Anubis really make Lucario stand out to me. But on top of that, it has a great array of abilities to complement its stats and a fantastic Mega Evolution to boot.
Well, those are all the Pokemon we have, and I think you did a great job, Liam.
Cheers, mate, I had fun. Make sure you guys at home let us know in the comments which Pokemon you think won each round. Oh, and make sure it's just one big comment. Nobody wants to see 20 comments from the same person.
Exactly, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and make sure to follow us both on Twitter. Check out Liam's latest form fight, which is on screen right now, and if you already have, check out the other video on screen. Subscribe to both of our channels, and check the links in the description for some awesome stuff. And I'll see you guys very soon. Bye!